Okay. I have started the recording, so
Mhm.
let's start the class and welcome to the session. Today is our seventh session or eighth session,
Eight,
right?
eight, eight.
Yeah, today's the eighth session.
What happened? The screen
Yes.
is missing.
Sorry.
It's, your screen was missing. So yeah, I got it now.
Okay, okay. So, did you get a chance to go through the topics that we discussed yesterday?
Yesterday was too much of reading.
Okay, okay, no issues. Uh, like the things that we discussed yesterday. So actually, those are not very much important as well. So whenever you get time, just go through that once, and
Sure.
that would be enough, I guess, because those are not important from the interview perspective, and they're not important from the work perspective as well. I mean, whenever you will be working, so every team follows their own process for this review and all. So
Mhm.
yeah, that is good to know. Basically, we don't
Okay,
need to
sure.
remember all those things, but the things that we will learn in today's session and the
Mhm.
following session, so these are going to be very much important from a tester's perspective, because when we'll be writing those test cases and when we'll be writing our test scenarios and all, at that time we need to keep this techniques in our mind, so that we
Sure.
can uh, cover all the test cases or all the scenarios through our test cases. So this is going to be a very important session for us. So let's just start. I'll share my screen. Okay, hope my screen is visible.
Oh, just a minute. I'm having some issue here. Sorry, something happened. Couldn't share the screen.
uh
Now it is okay. I re-logged in.
okay, so now my screen is visible.
It just says that you have started screen sharing. Nothing
Okay.
on the screen. Says you
um
started screen sharing.
okay, I'll
Nothing.
just
Yeah, nothing written. I can see your picture, but nothing written on the screen.
okay, I'll just stop the sharing once and start sharing it again.
Yeah, I can see.
Okay, okay, fine. So let's start with today's session. And as I mentioned, right, this is going to be a very important session, this one and the following sessions. So these are going to be very important because we are going to actually learn the different techniques that we are going to use while we will write our test cases or while we'll be doing our testing. So we the testers, as we were talking about this yesterday as well, that we as a tester, we are more involved in the dynamic testing phase rather than the static testing phase, because in the static testing the review of the code and review of the requirement, those things are done, and normally the inspection and all the work through, so the code work through, the code review, technical code review, so in those cases mostly it's done by the developers and the analyst or the people from the stakeholders, the business analyst and those. But the important thing is we testers also get involved sometimes in the system requirement review or the requirement specification review or in the code reviews and all, but we don't take major participate majorly there. But in case of this dynamic testing technique, this is completely for us. So when we'll be writing our test cases, when we'll be executing our test cases, so we need to use this testing techniques, and that's why it's become so important for us. Okay, so what
Mhm.
we are going to learn today, so we will see what is dynamic testing technique. Then there are different type of dynamic testing techniques, so we are going to talk about those. And then we have different techniques like equivalence partitioning, we have boundary value analysis, we have decision table, and we have state transition. So through this we'll see how can we use this testing techniques while writing our test cases or while designing our test cases. Okay,
Okay.
so let's start. So this is a overall diagram of different testing techniques. Okay, so the first one is static testing technique, which we had already discussed yesterday. And under
Mhm.
the static testing technique, we saw that there are informal reviews and there are formal reviews. There are walkthroughs where the owner of the or the author of the documents actually walk us through the document. He will go through whatever he has put in the document, and then we will ask the questions accordingly. In the technical review, what was there? So in the technical review, normally it's a code review kind of thing, where the code will be reviewed by the peers or the technical expert or the architects. So in there the technical review is done, and inspection is the most formal type of review. Just one thing to inform you that I have uploaded an assignment, so whenever you get time, just complete that and upload your answer.
Can I do it like tomorrow evening? Because I have
Yeah,
a
yeah,
lot to
yeah. Yeah, no
complete.
issues, no issues. Whenever you get time, you can complete that.
Okay.
Yeah. So I have just uploaded it yesterday, so I just thought that I should inform you that as well.
Mhm.
So whenever you get time, just complete that. It won't take much time as well. The questions are very easy there. Okay, so walkthroughs, technical reviews, inspections, so all these things we had already discussed yesterday. And then there were static code analysis, and under the static code analysis, there are different type of static code analysis like data flow or control flow. These are not actually important to us, and this is specifically done by the developers. So we are not going to look upon those things. Now we are going to talk about the dynamic testing technique. Okay, so what are the different type of dynamic testing technique? There are three types of dynamic testing technique that we are going to talk about. The first one is structure based. Okay, the first one is structure based, the next one is experience based, and the last one is specification based. So we are going to mostly use this specification based testing technique while designing our test cases or designing our test scenarios. So today we are going to focus on this specification based testing technique. So what are these three different type of testing technique? What is the structure based testing technique? What is experience based testing technique? And what is specification based testing technique? So we have so are you clear with the difference between static test technique and dynamic test technique?
Yeah, static testing, as I understand, is done verification phase and is done by developers and those architects or software module experts. But dynamic
Mhm.
testing, you said, is in the validation phase, and we are involved in that.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
I think static testing, we don't need any computer or anything like that, only
Yes,
just documents.
yes. Documents are the code that has been developed by the developer. But
Yeah.
in case of the dynamic testing, we will need the systems because we are going to actually do the testing here.
Mhm.
Okay. So now what is specification based technique? So specification based technique is a black box testing. Okay.
Mhm.
So I hope you do
Yeah.
remember what is black
Yeah.
box
Just
testing.
the
Yeah.
input and the output. You don't need to know all the insides of.
Yes. So inside structure, the code structure, the architecture, so those things the tester is not expected to know. So the tester will know what will go into the system as the input and what is he expecting as the output. And now he
Mhm.
will check whether the expected output is matching with the actual output or not. So that is all that we do in case of black box testing. So in case of black box testing, we don't need to know the internal structure. So the same is applicable for the specification based testing. So in the specification based testing, what is done? So you have the requirement specification, right, where it will be mentioned what is expected by the customer side, right? So according to the specification, you will design your test cases so that the system will meet the end goal or the system will meet the expected behavior of the customer.
Can you repeat that? Can you repeat that, please?
Okay, so specification based technique, in specification based testing, what you will do, you will design your test cases in such a way referring to the requirement specification so that the output of the system will match the expected behavior of the customer.
Mhm.
Okay, so whatever the customer is expecting from the system, so that is documented in the requirement specification, right?
Mhm.
Okay, now you need to design your test cases referring to this requirement specification. Okay, so referring to the requirement specification, you will design your test cases so that the expected behavior of the system matches with the requirement specification. So that's
Okay.
why
Can
it
I
is called.
can I ask a question?
Yeah, yeah, sure.
So you'll design the test cases as a tester. Is that uh, as a team or individual?
So that depends actually. I mean, if you are working in a team and you are having a testing team, so suppose in your total team, in your total project team, there are say 5 developers and 3 testers. Okay,
Mhm.
in that case, all the 3 testers are going to write those test cases.
Okay.
So it might happen that the modules will be divided among the testers. So that could be done, but everyone will be involved in the preparation phase as well. I mean,
Mhm.
these are normally done in the preparation phase, right? So
Okay.
in the planning phase. So in the planning
Mhm.
phase, everyone will get involved to
Mhm.
prepare the test plan, and then preparing the test cases, test data creation. So everyone will get involved there.
Mhm.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the specification based testing, is that clear now?
Yeah.
Okay. So in the specification based technique, what we are basically going to do is we are going to refer the requirement specification document, and from the requirement specification document, we'll use some of the techniques that we will discuss today, which comes under the specification based design testing technique. And based on that, we will uh, design our test cases. Now we have the structure based test design technique as well, and the structure based test design technique is basically the white box testing. So in this case, you will have the idea as a tester. You have the idea of the internal structure. So basically here you are going to test the code, not the actual um, say actual software or actual module. So this is basically used by the um developers while doing the component testing. So component testing also comes under the validation process, right?
Mhm.
Because there also you are the developer, or even it can be some testers as well who has the internal knowledge of the internal structure of the system. So they are going to test the code there, and that's why it is structure based testing design technique, which
Mhm.
will which comes under the white box testing. And finally, the
Okay.
experience based testing. So in the experience based testing, normally it's kind of a informal testing, where we normally don't write the test cases. Okay, so this is basically the people who are having the wholesome idea of the software, and that's why they have the business knowledge as well. Okay, so as they are having the wholesome idea of the business, and they have the idea of the whole software, so they are not going to do write the formal test cases and all. So they're going to just uh, uh, so we had already discussed about the exploratory testing, day before, on the last week,
Mhm.
the last class as well,
Mhm.
last class of the last week. So in the exploratory testing, what did we see? That the people who are having the wholesome idea of the software or the business, so they will just test the software to find the bugs. So they won't
Like
yeah, so they won't
like
go.
who? Like who will have the experience base? Who are those people who have the whole knowledge? The project manager or something?
So yeah, so that could be the project manager or the business analyst people as well, or
Uh-huh.
like,
Okay.
yeah, so mostly it's the business analysts, okay, who are there from the who were involved from the initial stage of the project. Okay,
Mhm.
and if they are involved from the initial stage of the project, they have talked to the customer, and they have understood the requirement from the customer, and then they have documented the and given you the requirement analysis. So they have the wholesome idea of what
Mhm.
is expected from the system. So they
Mhm.
have that experience, and sometimes it happens that the people who are working in a project from a long time, okay, they
Mhm.
are not the business analyst. They could be the developers as well, or they could be the testers who are working from a very long time in a particular project. So they
Mhm.
know the history of the, because when you work in a long term project, then you know that what are the changes that the particular software or that particular application has gone through, and he has seen all the phases of that. So he has that experience, he knows the
Mhm.
in and out of that application. So in those cases, he doesn't need any particular document or any particular test cases to test the software. So with his experience, he can actually test the software. Okay,
Mhm.
so he knows what are the different scenarios and how the system will behave according to the scenarios. So that's why this is something that actually complements the specification based testing and the structure based testing, because whatever you have tested in the specification based testing and structure based testing, that is fine, but along with that, if you do this exploratory type of testing or experience based testing, so this can give you some bugs from the edge cases as well, which is not covered through specification based or structure based testing, and this will actually give you the more coverage as well.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, so let's just look at this, what is written here. So in experience based technique, people's knowledge, skills and background are a prime contributor to the test condition and test cases. The experience of both technical and business people is important, as they bring different perspective to the test analysis and design process. Due to previous experience with similar systems, they may have insights into what could go wrong, which is very useful for testing. These techniques are used to complement specification and structure based technique, and are also used when there is no specification, or if the specification is inadequate or out of date. Okay,
Mhm. Mhm.
so this is understandable, right? The experience based
Yes.
testing
Yes.
technique. Okay, okay. So now let's discuss about the structure based testing technique first, and then we can go into the specification based testing technique, because today we are going to focus on this specification based testing technique. Okay, so what is structure based testing technique? So as we already discussed that this is basically the white box, or white box is also termed as the glass box testing. I hope you remember that. So
Yes.
whenever you see glass box testing technique, you need to remember that it's the white box testing technique. Okay, so
Mhm.
in glass box testing or in white box testing, you need the knowledge of the internal structure, or how the code is implemented, how the software is implemented, right? So it is then used mostly by the developers. So they will use the structure based testing technique to test their code, to test the component. So basically in the component testing or in the component integration testing, this is used, and there are some automated tools as well, which will give you the code coverage. Okay, how the structure is written, how the code is written, and how much coverage it is going to give you. So that is structure based testing technique. And finally, the specification based testing technique. So the specification based testing technique is like the primary thing of the dynamic testing technique, and it is the black box testing technique. I mean, that means that you will provide an input, and based on that, the software or the application will give you an output, and now you need to validate that output, right?
Mhm.
Okay, and in this case, as a tester, you don't need to know what is the underlying architecture, what is the underlying structure
Mhm.
of the software, and you just you just know the input, what input you are going to provide to the software, and based on that, you are expecting some output, and you will validate that output. So that is uh,
Will I come to understand what is this input and output later on?
So the input and output, that you know, that you will understand from the specification document itself, right? Because in the specification document, it will be that will be given to you, right?
Okay. Okay.
Because from the specification document itself, you will understand. So based on that, you need to divide your testing. That is the thing that we are going to learn. Okay,
Okay.
but the specifications of the what will be the input, what the system is expecting from you, and then what will be the behavior of the system. So the behavior is the output, right?
Mhm.
So that you will get from the requirement document itself.
Okay.
And not everything will be covered by the requirement document. I mean, I'm talking about the practical cases. In the practical cases, all these details won't be there in the specification document itself. So what you'll
Mm.
have is when you'll have the review of those, requirement document, and then you'll analyze the requirement document. So at that time you'll come up with queries, right? So based on the queries, you will get answers from the business team, from the business analyst, or from the customer side. And then sometimes in some projects the requirement specification document is updated based on the queries. Sometimes those are not properly documented. So if those are not properly documented, then what will happen? So mostly like in the agile, so there the agile things comes up, because in agile, like, people don't focus on documentation much. We If you
Mm.
remember, we talked about this as
Yeah,
well, right?
yeah.
Because there are more interactions with the customer, almost on a daily basis. And on a daily basis, if you are interacting with them, you won't have much time to document everything. So what will happen
Correct.
is there will be mails, or there will be the user stories, and in the user stories people will comment their updates. Okay, and
Mhm,
based on
mhm.
that you need to update your test case, or based on that you need to update your test scenarios. Okay,
Okay.
so in that way practically it happens like that. But if we look theoretically, then the requirement document is the source of truth. But when we
Okay.
work practically, then it's not the case every time. So it might happen that from the requirement document you are getting some queries, and those queries can be answered in a lot of ways. Like in the mail you will get some of the answers. Some of the answers you'll be getting in the comment section of the user stories. And in some cases you'll get a other document as well, where all the queries will be given. Or it will be somewhere a page will be created, and on that shared page you will get all the answers and all. Okay.
Mhm. Okay.
Okay, so the different type of dynamic testing technique, is it clear now? The
Yes,
specific.
black box, white box, experience based.
Okay, okay, great, great then. Okay, so let's start with the specification based techniques then. And there are mainly four type of specification based testing technique. Okay, and we are going to, this is very much important from the interview perspective as well. I mean, they're not going to ask you that what are the different type of specification based technique. They won't ask you. This will be like the very upfront questions. Okay, like what is equivalence partitioning, or what is boundary value analysis. And they might
Mhm,
give you an example, and they might ask you that, okay, so if this is the scenario, then what will be the different cases that you are going to test using the equivalence partitioning. Okay, or they
mhm,
might ask you that this is the scenario, what will be your different test input, or what will be the different scenarios if you test it using the boundary value analysis. So these are the different type of questions. Otherwise they might ask you that what are the different type of testing technique that you have used to write your test cases.
uh-huh,
Okay, so if they ask you in that way, you need to remember that, okay, what are the different testing techniques that we use to write the test cases, and these are the answers.
all the
We
four.
use the
Mhm,
equivalence partitioning, we use the boundary value analysis, and based on the application, based on the type of application you are testing, you might need to use the decision table and state transition testing as well.
mhm,
So normally this decision table or the state transition testing, these are provided along with the requirement document itself, because this is required by the developers as well to write their code. Okay, this decision table and state transition testing. But if this is not given in the table format, or in the like the state transition testing, this comes under a diagram format. So if those are not provided, in that case you can actually design this decision table or state transition testing diagram as a tester as well. But normally, like I have not seen any case where as a tester I need to design this decision table or design the state transition diagram. So this comes with the requirement specification itself, and from there you can actually design your test cases looking at the decision table or looking at the state transition diagram. You can design your test cases accordingly. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, fine. So let's now look at this individual things. Okay, let's start with the equivalence partitioning. So what is equivalence partitioning? What does the name suggest? So the name equivalence partitioning suggests that we need to equally
Divide it
partition.
equally, partition
Yes,
it equally.
partition it equally or divide it equally. So what do we need to divide equally or partition equally? Let's look at that.
Good.
Okay. So when you have a system, so and this is also a black box testing technique. So there will be an input that will be going into the system, and there will be some output that will be getting from the system, right? So
Mhm.
now the input, if you look at the input, so what will be the input, and based on that input, what will be the output that is coming out from the system. Now
Mhm.
this input that is going into the system, so there could be various input, right? So there could be a stream of input. I mean, if we now talk about an example, so if you're if the suppose you need to log into the system, or you need to provide uh, a username to the system.
Mhm.
Okay, so the username must have some specification, right? So normally it will have like you can give anything. So the username might be say minimum 8 to 12 characters long, and it must contain a special character. It must contain some digits in it. It must contain a minimum small letter and a capital letter. So these are the different type of input or the specification that is given. Okay, now let's take some another example. Uh, there is a registration form that you are filling, okay, and that accepts that is asking you to enter the age, okay, and the specification is given there that the age should be in between 18 to 50 years.
Mhm.
Okay,
Okay.
now when you'll be testing this particular specification, okay, so what will be different type of input that you will provide into the system to test the output. Okay, because
Only you
if
can,
this,
yeah, you can give the right age or the wrong age, right?
yes, correct, you can give the right age and you can give the wrong age, but if you are giving the right age as well, it's expecting values from 18 to 50,
Yeah.
right?
Uh-huh.
So what will be the different type of values that you will test with,
Uh-huh.
right? So
Yeah.
that is called as equivalence partitioning. So this testing technique is called as equivalent partitioning, where we'll divide a set of test condition into groups or set, and then accordingly you will validate the output of the system. So
So
it's
what did
not,
you divide? So what did you divide over there?
so you divide the you make a group of input. Okay,
No, no,
so
about this age, in this age question.
yeah, yeah,
The,
that we are coming to that. We'll be
uh-huh.
coming to that. So now, so the input that is having, so say let's now take the example. So let's now see that if the age is there, so 18 to 50, it's expecting, right? Or that
Mhm.
is a valid input. Now what you need to test, you need to test both the positive case and the negative case.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now any value that is less than 18,
It's a negative.
it's a negative case.
Uh-huh.
Any value that falls in between 18 to 50, that is positive.
Positive. Positive.
any value that is greater than 50, that is
Negative.
positive. That is negative.
Greater
Yeah,
than.
that is negative. And now let's take another scenario in this case as well. What will happen if you don't enter any digit? If you enter some characters there,
It's going to be negative.
it's going to be negative. Now there could be infinite number of negative input. Okay, there are a finite number of positive input, but there are infinite number of negative input,
Uh-huh.
right? Because the positive
Anything, yeah,
input, anything, although like if you are going to test with all the values in between 18 to 60, that's not going to work, right?
yeah,
That will take a lot of time.
right,
So you,
yeah,
you you are not going to test with every value that falls between 18 to
yeah,
60 or 18 to 50.
right.
And if you look at the negative cases, then there are infinite
Infinite,
number of
yeah,
cases.
yeah.
So what equivalence partitioning says that you can create a group of the input. It can be positive or valid input, it can be invalid. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
create two different group. One will have the positive inputs or the valid inputs, one will have the invalid input, and then divide your inputs or group your inputs and take a subset out of that and test with that. And if that subset is working, the system is working or giving you the proper output, the actual output for that subset, you can assume that the system will work for the entire set of the valid input or the entire set of the invalid input.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if the third point you will see, it's saying in equivalence partitioning technique we need to test only one condition from each partition. This is because we are assuming that all the conditions in one partition will be treated in the same way by the software. If one condition in a partition works, we assume all of the conditions in the partition will work, and so there is a little point in testing a- any of these others. Similarly, if one of the conditions in a partition doesn't work, then we assume that none of the conditions in that partition will work. So again, there is little point in testing anymore in that partition.
So, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure.
Based on this 18 to 50 age group, so I
Mm-hmm.
choose number 30 and I test 30, it is positive. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and then I choose the number 15, it tests negative, it's negative. So I'm testing only one each. That's what I understand from this.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
so before I go to the next slide and talk more about what you just said. So now it is understood that we will have two type of input class. One will be the valid input class and another will be invalid input class, right?
Mhm.
So
Yes.
we are dividing the scenarios into two cases, right? One is the valid input and one is the invalid input. So in the valid input class, the valid inputs, like the example that you said, the 30.
Mhm.
So that falls
Mhm.
in between 18 to 50. So that
Mhm.
will come in the valid input class. What will come in the
Mhm.
invalid input class? The value 15 or say the value
Okay.
65. So this comes
Mhm.
under the invalid input class. So we can
Okay.
divide the whole input group into two classes. One will be the valid input class and one will be
Mhm.
the invalid input class. And based on that, we can actually design our test. Okay.
Mhm.
So now let's see. So say let's not go into this age this example. Let's talk about the example that we were taking. Okay, so
Mhm.
there is a age field which will allow you to enter the numeric characters only, and then the age must be in between 18 to 60, say.
Mhm.
Okay,
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
there will be three different classes. Okay, the
Mhm.
first one is invalid, and what will be
Uh-huh.
the value of invalid? Any value that is less than 18,
Mhm.
right? Then the
Yeah.
valid class, where the value, any value that is in between 18 to 60.
Yeah.
And then another invalid class where the any value falls greater than 60.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
Mm.
now if you test with any value from this class and you get the expected output. So maybe like when you enter any value less than 18 or greater than 16, you will get an error message saying that please enter a proper, or please enter the correct value in between 18
Mm-hmm.
to 60. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So what is expected when you enter any value from this class?
Negative one, a negative report.
So you will get that error message,
Error
right? So
message.
that,
Yeah.
that is your expected behavior. Okay. So you can test with any value that falls or that comes from this class, and if that is passing, so that is passing means
It's a bug.
no, it's not a bug. So
Huh.
in this case, like if you are entering any value from the invalid class and that pass means you are getting that error message. So if you are getting that error message, so that is expected, right? So that
Oh,
means
yeah,
your
yeah,
test
yeah,
case is passing.
yeah,
So if you are
yeah.
not getting the error message, that means that there is a bug in the application
Yeah.
or in the
Okay.
software, and your
Uh-huh.
test case is failing in that case.
Yeah.
Because what is expected from this test case? The test case expectation from this test case is you should get the error message.
Yeah. Because
And
it falls outside the parameters. Mm.
yes, yes. So similarly, so now any value you can take from this class and you can test with that. And now if the test case is passing, that means if you're getting that error message, then you can say that, okay, for this entire set of values, the software will work according to the expected behavior.
Okay.
So we are not going to test with all the values that comes under this set. So that is
Uh-huh.
not required.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now let's come to the second set, which is the valid set. So in the valid set, you can take any value from there and you can test. And if you are not getting any error message, you are able to submit the form. So in that case, you can say that the system is behaving properly, or the
Uh-huh.
system is behaving as per the expectation, and your
Mm-hmm.
test case will pass.
Mm-hmm.
And in this case as well, you don't need to test with all the
All the
values.
numbers. Yeah.
Yes. But suppose you have not created this set. What will happen then? So you
Maybe.
have, so in
Mm-hmm.
that case, what will happen? You have tested with the values that those are less than 18,
Mm.
but you have not tested the values which is greater than 60. But
So
the
you won't
requirement
be.
says
Uh,
but the requirement says that the values should be in between 18 to 60. Now you are
mm.
thinking that, okay, I have already checked with the values less than 18, and I have also checked with the value in between 18 to 60, so the system is
Mm.
working fine. But you have missed to check whether the value, if I put any value which is greater than 60, how the system will
Mm.
be is going to behave.
Mm.
Because it
Mm-hmm.
should also give you the error, right? If you
Yeah.
are get
Yeah.
putting if you're giving any value greater than 60 as the input, it should give you the error.
Yeah.
And if you are not testing it, so you are not covering all the cases. So that's
Right.
how, as a tester, you need to think always. So this is
Okay.
the golden rule, that as a tester you need to first think about all the negative scenarios,
Mm-hmm.
because you won't find bugs from the positive scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
Because when the developer is developing, so what he will see from the requirement specification. So from the requirement specification, he will see that the system is behaving, the system is expecting value in between 18 to 60. And if I put any value in between 18 to 60, it should go to the next step, right? You should be able to
Mm-hmm.
submit the form and it will, uh, you know, go to the next page, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when they will be testing as well, they will test from the developer side. I'm saying. So from the
Mm-hmm.
developer side, when he'll be testing, what he'll do, he will provide the value, any value in between 18 to 60. So 25, he will enter 25. He will see whether the page is submitted or not, whether the form is
Mm.
submitted and you are going navigating to the next page or not. So they are going to, from the developer side, they are always going to test only the positive side. They are
Yeah.
not going to test the negative side. But as
Right.
a tester, you need to test the negative side, because the bugs are most likely to be present in the negative scenarios only.
Right. Right. Right.
Because when the developer is developing, they will keep the positive scenarios in the mind, but there will be a lot of chances that they are not going to consider the negative side
Right.
or the negative scenarios. And that's why,
Mhm.
as a tester, you need to think of the negative scenarios first.
Sure.
So here, if you are not considering the scenarios which are greater than 60, and if you are putting any value greater than 60, the system is, saving it, and you are able to submit the form, then that's a bug. Your test case will be
Yeah.
failing, right, for this
Yeah.
particular
Yeah.
set. So
Yeah.
in that way, you need to consider that I will have another set as well, which will take any value that is greater than 60. Okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
Now, uh, now you have been given this requirement. Okay, that uh, there is a text field. The text field is a age field, which is taking any value in between 18 to 60, and at the same time, it allows you to enter only numeric character. So tell
Mhm.
me one other set that you need to consider here. The
It.
values should be in between 18 to 60. That condition is also there, and
Uh,
it is telling you that the text field permits only numeric characters.
so, is it the second requirement also length should be 6 to 10 characters?
No, no.
So 18 to 60, I mean, just take 59 and test.
So that comes under this set, right? The valid set.
Yeah, valid. So you're asking for invalid or valid?
Sorry.
Ask your question is asking for invalid or valid?
What do you think? Whether it should be valid or invalid?
No, I didn't. Can you repeat the question then?
So the question is basically,
Uh,
suppose there is a text box, okay,
uh,
in a form, in a registration form, where
uh,
it's asking about, you need to enter your age, okay,
hmm,
and there is a condition that the age has to be in between 18 to 60. That is the
hmm,
first condition. The
hmm,
second condition is the value should be numeric.
okay.
Okay, the text box is expecting numeric, obviously, because if you need to enter the age, so and the value is between 18 to 60, so it will be the numeric characters, right?
Hmm.
So in that case, what is some other set of tests that you would like to perform there,
So put in
or you will provide
the
as input,
pardon?
or like you will provide that set as the input?
So I will test using the number 62.
So that comes under this set, right?
Yeah. Or I'll test using the number 10.
So number 10 will comes from
Yeah.
this set, invalid set.
Yeah. Yeah. So both the sides are
So
included.
so all these three set are already included. Apart from all these three set, will there be any other set from where you need to test? Can you think of any other set that you need to, consider? Okay, I'm giving you a hint. It will be a set of invalid input.
Um,
Just think of the conditions that I have given you. The first condition
18 to
is
60.
18 to 60. The next
Hmm.
condition is the text box should only allow you to enter numeric values.
Yeah, put so in the test box, if you put an alphabet.
Yes. So that is another set of input that you need to consider as well. So suppose you are giving less than 18, say 15, you are submitting it and you are getting the error. That is correct. The system is behaving correctly, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Now you are putting any value in between 18 to 60 and you are able to
Get the error.
submit. You are not getting any
Mm.
error message. The system is behaving correctly.
Yeah.
You are putting any value 65
Mm-hmm.
and you are able to get the error message. The system is
Mm-hmm.
behaving correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Now suppose you are entering AB,
It's yeah.
you are submitting and you are able to submit.
It should be an error. It should
There
be.
should be an error, right? You
Yeah.
should get an error and you should not be able to
Right.
submit the form by entering any characters
Right.
if it's not a numeric character, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that should be another set of test as well, which is not written here, which is not given in this particular example, but it
So
has to be. Yeah.
So, you also said it is infinite. I mean, these invalid ones are infinite. My question at this point is, if it passes with alphabets, what about using symbols? It shouldn't pass, right? Should I test all that then?
So symbols are considered as special character.
Yeah, but the test could pass if I put symbols, then that's also a bug, right?
So you can keep another set where you can enter a particular symbol there, or in the special character there.
Okay.
So that you can keep under the other set, other invalid set itself. So you can keep
Okay.
two input values there. One is
Uh-huh.
only the normal characters like A, B, and
Uh-huh.
another is with the special characters, say A
Okay.
and asterisk or A at the rate.
Okay.
So in that
Okay.
case, you are testing with the special characters as well.
Okay.
So in whenever you are testing, so that's the flavor of testing. Whenever you are into testing, you need to think. So that is the only thing that we are paid for. You need to think all the possible cases, okay, and
Mm-hmm.
accordingly you need to design your test cases.
Mm-hmm.
So now are you clear with the equivalence partitioning?
Oh, yeah, it seems to be interesting.
hmm hmm it's actually interesting. So what they are doing is, it is easy to test input ranges 6 to 10, okay, but harder to test input ranges 2 to 600, right?
Mm-hmm.
So testing will be easy in the case of lesser test cases, but you should be careful assuming valid input is 7. That means you believe that the developer coded the correct valid range. So whenever you are testing with any value in between this set, and if it's working fine, then you can consider that uh, that particular, for any value in between that set, the system is going to work fine. But
Mm-hmm.
it won't, it won't uh, assure you that the system will behave correctly for the other set of input. So you need to test with an input from each and every set.
Mm-hmm.
You got it, right?
Yeah, and some with alphabets or some with symbols, different tests. Okay.
Yes,
So if it's
absolutely.
2 to 600 input, if I test like 100 and then test one on the invalid and test 700 on the invalid.
So 100 and 700, those are from the same set, right? Those are
No,
from the
100
invalid.
will be valid, right?
100 won't be valid. Uh,
Why
are you
2 to
talking about this?
600? No,
Are you
no, this
talking
one,
about
this
this
one.
example?
No, no, no. What's written here? 2 to 600.
So 2 to 600, they are talking about this example. And
Yeah, no, in that
here,
example, I mean, in that example.
in this example, the condition is length must be 6 to 10.
Oh, 6 to 10 characters. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Okay.
anything that is less than 6 character or anything that is greater than 10 character, it's invalid.
So wait. If it says input ranges 2 to 600 and it says 6 to 10 characters. So how
Yeah,
will we have 6 characters in 2 to 600?
6 character in 2 to
Uh-huh.
600. So the thing that is I think confusing you here, they are saying it as 6 to 10 characters, right? So that means here one means it's not the digit one, it is telling you that one character or two characters or three characters or four characters or five characters. Then the valid input is, you are if you're inputting 6 characters, that means 6 times 1 or 6 times 2. So that is a valid input for this particular example. And when this is given, input ranges 2 to 600.
Mm,
Okay,
mm.
so this says that this 2 to 600 means it's not the digit 2 or not the digit 600. This is
Okay, okay.
2 characters long or 600 characters long,
Okay,
so
okay.
it is in
Okay,
that way.
okay. Uh-huh. I get it. Yeah.
Okay, so if your input is 7 character long, then that's a valid input, right?
Okay.
So if you're testing with with an input which is 7 character long, so that falls under this category. And
Right,
when
right.
you're testing with that, you can say that, okay, so this all the values that comes under this category will work fine. But that doesn't confirm that any value that is having greater than 10 characters, the system will behave correctly for that particular input. So you need to
Mm.
test with some value or one value from this group as well. So if
Oh.
that is working fine and that is working fine, then you can say that as a whole, the system is working fine.
Mm.
So how does this equivalence partitioning help then? This equivalence partitioning helps you to shorten your testing time or reduce your number of test cases. But at the same time, this will guarantee you that the system is behaving correctly for every type or all type of input set.
Mm.
Okay, is it clear?
Mm. Yes.
Okay, fine. So now let's talk about boundary value analysis. So boundary value analysis is, we can say that it's a subset of equivalence partitioning itself. But what we don't test in case of equivalent partitioning, that is tested in case of boundary value analysis.
Mm.
So what do you mean by boundary value analysis? So boundary value analysis is basically checking the boundary values, because whenever the developer is coding, so it's most likely they are going to make mistake in these boundary values. How? So suppose the same example, let's take the same example, that the system is expecting any value in between 18 to 60. Okay,
Mm.
now what does the system say? Does it include the value 18 as well, or does it include the value 60 as well, or
Yes.
it's greater than 80 or less than 60? So if it's greater than 18, so in that case it should not allow you with the value 18 as well. It has to be 19, 20, and the values greater
Yeah.
than 18.
Mm. Mm.
If it's less than or equal to 60, then you can go up to 60. But if it's less than 60, so if you will provide 60, that will be invalid, right?
Why would it be invalid?
So
18 to 60, right?
yeah, but if the value has to be less than 60 years old,
Huh.
so that is the boundary, right? So this
Yeah.
depends on the criteria. So if
Mm.
they are asking any value less than 60 and you are providing 60, then it should not allow you.
Mm.
If the condition is that the value should be less than equal to 60, then only if you are providing
It's
60, it
okay.
should allow you. So
Uh-huh.
this is basically checking the boundary values, because the
Checking the bond. Uh-huh.
developers, yeah, so the developers are most likely going to make mistake in this boundary conditions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what is written here? So boundary value analysis is a test design technique to test boundary value between partitions. So it comes with the partition itself, but we need to test the boundary here, both
Mhm.
valid boundary partition and invalid boundary partition. So in this case, if you have been asked to enter any value in between 18 to 60, and 18 and 60 value is also considered. So in that case, what will happen? Invalid boundary partition will be 17 or 17.99, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
In the lower boundary case.
Mhm.
And what will be the valid boundary partition? It will be 18, exactly
Yeah.
18.
Uh-huh.
Then you need to check other boundary as well. What is the other boundary? It is
60.
expecting any value less than or equal to 60. So
Uh-huh.
that means the
There's
valid
60.1.
boundary valid boundary is 60.
60.
Invalid boundary is 60.1 or
60.1.
61.
Uh-huh.
Yes. So this is the boundary value analysis.
Mhm.
A boundary value is an input or output value on the border of an equivalence partition. So this is, as I mentioned, this is a subset of equivalence partition, but we are going one step ahead than equivalence partition, and we are
Mhm.
checking the boundaries, which includes
Okay.
minimum and maximum values at inside and outside boundary. So what is inside boundary? The value 18. So that is inside
Mhm.
boundary. What is
Mhm.
outside boundary? 17.9 or 17. So
Mhm.
that is outside boundary. Similarly, 60, that is inside boundary. But
Mhm.
60.1, that is outside boundary. But if
Mhm.
the condition is you need to enter any value less than 60, in that case 60 will be outside boundary.
Okay.
59.9, that will be inside boundary,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. So using boundary value analysis technique, tester creates test cases for required input field. For example, an address text box which allows maximum 500 character. So writing test cases for each character once will be difficult, so that we'll choose boundary value analysis. So
Mhm.
normally what we do is we combine the equivalence partitioning and boundary value analysis. While
Mhm.
writing our test cases, we'll combine equivalence partitioning and boundary value analysis. So what
Mhm.
causes this kind of error? Fault into near boundaries. Good place to look for fault, test values on both sides of boundaries. So because now when the developer is actually writing the code, so he needs to consider this conditions, and these conditions are implemented using some if else conditions. So that is the programmatic term that I'm talking about, but this comes under the if else condition. That's how these are implemented in the coding. Okay. And when
Mhm.
the developer is implementing this, so they normally make mistake in these boundaries. So if they are not checking whether the value should be less than equal to or only less than, right? So
Mhm.
if they're not putting that equals to in the condition, that means there will be a fault or there will be a
Mhm.
bug in that case.
Mhm. Mhm.
So while designing your testing, you need to consider both boundary value analysis and equivalent partitioning. So that will be a good design of the
Mhm.
test cases. So here there is an example where we have very important tool at office sorry, which accepts valid username and password field to work on that tool, and accept minimum 8 character and maximum 12 character. Valid range is 8 to 12, invalid range is 7 or less than 7. So see, invalid range is 7 or less than 7, invalid range is 13 or more than 13. So what will happen?
Mhm.
You'll again
So we
create
have
the
to test the
partition.
boundaries 7 and 13.
Yes. So invalid partitioning is less than 8, valid partitioning is 8 to 12, invalid partitioning is more than 12. So we are
Mhm.
including both uh, partitioning and boundary value analysis,
Mhm.
right? So what
Yeah.
will be the different type of test cases? So the first test case will be consider password length less than 8 from this
Mhm.
set.
Mhm.
Okay. Then
Yeah.
test case 2, consider password of length 8 because that is the
Mhm.
boundary,
Yeah.
right? Then
Yeah.
consider password of length between 9 and 11. So that
Mhm.
is equivalence partitioning. You are taking any value in between the 9 and 11.
Yeah.
Then consider password of length exactly 12. So this is again the
Mhm.
boundary here,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And then
Yeah.
consider password of length more than 12. So this is from here, invalid
Yeah.
partition.
Yeah.
So now you see you are checking everything. You are
Mhm.
checking all the conditions that are available here.
Mhm.
So that's how, like, whenever you see such scenarios, you need to consider both equivalence partitioning and boundary value, and accordingly you need to design your test so that you
Mhm.
are able to check each and every condition.
Mhm.
So does it look interesting?
Yes, very interesting.
Okay. You have any query till now?
No, no, no. It's
It's
you have explained it very well.
okay. Okay. Great. Great. Then let's take a small break of 5 minutes. Okay.
Mhm.
And then we'll talk quickly about the decision table and the state transition testing. So that's all
Okay.
we have left for today. So let's take a small break of 5 minutes and we'll be back after
Yeah,
that.
if you can leave that screen on, I will read it.
Which one?
The decision.
Okay. Okay. Sure. I'll just
Thank
leave
you.
this screen.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Okay. Fine. Okay, so uh, did you understand something by going through the
Let me
text?
tell this. Yeah, this is what I understand. Like there's so many things to test. So it may not be practical, but we need to have a set of we need to have a table to test. Otherwise, it will be, you know, it's not. It's going to these arbitrary combinations will not help. It will not result in effective testing.
Yes, yes. So basically, this two things, right? The decision table and the state transition diagram. So this will actually help you to understand the scenarios or the understand the decision points, and based on that you can actually design your test. So like based on the decision table or based on the state transition, you can choose what should be your input, and then how the system will behave, and then you can choose your input accordingly. So
Mhm,
for choosing the input, you need to consider the boundary value analysis or equivalent partitioning. Okay.
mhm,
But to
mhm,
understand that, if I am providing, because this is the example that we were taking, so that is the very what can I say, very simple example, right? But
mhm,
there could be some applications which has a lot of business rules, and
mhm,
depending on those business rules, there are different actions that are taken, right? Like a banking application or a financial application. So there could be different type of users, right?
mhm,
And then for each user there could be different options as well, and
mhm,
based on an option that he is choosing, so some actions will be taken based on that. So
mhm,
all these conditions and rules, and based on those there would be some actions. So all these things can be simplified using the decision table. So that's why the
mhm.
decision table is
So who makes
required.
the decision table?
Yes, so that's what I was telling you, that normally this is provided with the requirement specification document,
Okay.
because this is required both for the developers and the testers. This is
Mhm,
required by the developers and the testers as well, because to implement such business rules, the developers has to understand it as well, at the same time the testers has to understand it as well, to test those different type of rules, right? Rules and
mhm,
actions. So that's why this kind of tables are designed. And normally it's not like you need to create this decision table. This is just for the understanding purpose, but this decision table will be provided to you to understand the system, or to understand the different type of rule and the different type of actions that will be happening there.
mhm,
Okay, so I will just show you an example, and I think it will be better to understand from there, because whatever is written there, you won't be able to understand it in a better way if you don't see the example. I will start a new share. Okay, can you see this table?
yeah.
Okay, so what does a decision table contain? Okay,
Mhm,
so in the columns there will be conditions. Okay, here
mhm,
there will be conditions, and here there will be certain rules.
mhm,
Okay,
okay.
and in the last section there will be the action.
Mhm,
Okay, so here if you see what are the different rules that are present, so the rules is here, the rules are this. So what is the case one? Both the username and password were incorrect, and error message is displayed to the user. So rule one is, So this is a simple application where there is a username field, there is a password field, and there is some actions or output based on there. So if you
Mm.
provide a correct username and correct password, you'll be able to log in. And then like the other conditions are written here. So if both, so the rule one is both the username and password are incorrect, and error message is
Mm.
displayed. What is rule two? The username and password both are right. However, the password, uh, no, I think something is written incorrectly
Yeah,
here. So basically, the username is correct, but the password is incorrect.
incorrect. Uh-huh.
Okay, so in that case, what will happen? The error message will be displayed,
Mm.
right? Then what will be the case three? Case three is although the username was correct, the password was uh,
Accurate.
username is correct, incorrect, but password is correct. So error
Mm.
message will be displayed.
Mm.
And in case of the rule four, the username and password are both incorrect.
Both. Okay. Error 4? No, username and password are both
No, it's accurate. I mean
yeah,
correct. So in that
yeah,
case, the user will be able to log in,
pass. Yeah.
right? So
Mm.
now there are different conditions. There are condition with
Yeah.
username. There is condition with password, because if you see here, the username can be correct and incorrect. The password can be incorrect and correct
Mm.
and incorrect. And
Mm.
based on that, the rules will be applied,
Mm.
right? So what will happen? See here, the username field and the password field. So true means make sure your login and password are correct, and F means incorrect login or password.
Mm.
Okay,
Mm.
so username T or F, so it is F, and password is also F. So that means the
Yeah.
action will be error,
Mm.
right? Now
Yeah.
username is true. True means you are
Mm.
entering correct username,
Mm.
but you are entering incorrect password. It will
Mm.
give you error.
Yeah.
You enter incorrect username, correct password. It will
Mm.
give you error.
Mm.
You are entering correct username, correct password. You will be able to go to home screen. You will be able to log in.
Okay. So
So
where is the
this,
what do you mean by decision making in this?
so decision making is this conditions.
Oh,
If you
okay.
are giving correct, so this is very simple example. So I
Mm.
just wanted to show you how the decision table looks like. So
Mm.
here what is happening, there are certain rules given, right? And based on the rules, as per your input, there will be some actions or output,
Yeah.
right? So the
Yeah.
rules are given here, and based on those rules, you are giving different kind of, you are, you know,
Yeah.
dividing, or you are
That.
classifying your inputs. You are
Yeah.
entering all type of input, and then you are checking, you're giving
Okay.
all the combinations of input as well, right? For
Right.
username there could be false true, and for password, for this false there could be false and true. So you are
Okay.
doing the combination of all type of valid input, and then you
Mm.
are checking the actions or the output of the system. So
So
this
where
is
is the
how
boundary value? Where is the boundary value?
so here the boundary value is not here. So boundary
Uh,
value is when you will write your test cases, at that time you need to enter the username or password.
uh,
So there will be separate condition for username. Say the username has to be 8 characters long, or the
oh, okay,
username
okay.
has to be 10
Oh, okay,
characters
okay.
long,
Right.
or the
Okay.
password has to be 8 to 10 character long. So at that
Okay.
time, see, so those are interconnected. So when you are
Okay.
talking about the incorrect username, right? So what
Mm.
does the incorrect username say is, so if you have a you have the condition that username should have 10 characters only,
Yeah.
10 characters only. So
Uh-huh.
now any username that is not having 10 character, that is
Invalid.
false,
Yeah.
invalid.
False. Yeah.
So that is also being included here, the equivalence partitioning. or
Okay.
the boundary value analysis.
Okay.
If the condition is the password should be 6 to 10 characters long, so
Okay.
if you are entering any value that falls between 6 to 10 characters, so that is a true.
Yeah.
Less than 6, that is false. Greater than
False.
10,
Yeah.
that is false.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So you need to design your tests accordingly. So
Okay.
what this will help you is to understand what are the different condition, or what are the different set of input that I can provide to the uh, like the in the application, and what will be the output from there.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see another example. So this is something that is given here, another example. Okay, so there are different cases, and there are different format and size and resolution. Okay, and
Mm.
based on that the output is there. So what is given here? So if the format is jpg and the size is less than 32 kb, okay, and
Mm.
the resolution is 137 into 177, in that case
Mm.
the photo will be uploaded.
Mm.
So these conditions are given here. You can only upload images in .jpg format, a file with a size of fewer than 32 kilobytes, and
Mm.
137 into 177 pixels is the resolution.
Mm.
So based on that, you can define different cases, right?
Mm.
So,
Yeah.
and what will be the cases? The cases will be of different combination
Right.
of this rules,
Right. Right.
right? So the format can be either jpg or not jpg. There are
Okay.
two type of input. The format can be either jpg or not jpg. Okay,
Mm.
now the file size is 32 kb. So see here what are
You
they
can
doing.
give 32 itself, but test the boundary here.
Yes, so what they're doing, they're entering different type of values in
Right.
using the equivalence partitioning and boundary value analysis. So they are
Right. Right.
inserting any value less than 32 kb, they are inserting any value greater than 32 kb.
More than
Now
32.
what are they doing? Greater than
Equal to.
equal to 32 kb.
Uh-huh.
So if you enter exact 32 kb, how will the system behave? And if you
Mm.
enter greater than 32 kb with 137 into 177, how the system will behave? So this is
Mm-hmm.
actually giving you, and it is not like you need to create this decision table, this will be given to you. So now this
Okay.
will actually help you to write your test cases. So
Okay.
each of this column is a test case, right? You can see
Okay.
each of this column is a test case, and this is the output that you need to validate. So
Okay.
if you provide a jpg type of image, and the image is less than 32 kb, and the resolution is not 137 into
Error.
177,
Uh-huh.
then you should get the error message. So this is
Okay.
itself a test case.
Yeah.
If you look at this one, if the format
Yeah.
is not jpg, although you are entering the value less than 32 kb,
Yeah.
and if the
Yeah.
resolution is not also 137 into 177, in that case you will get the error message with the format and resolution mismatch.
So what are we writing if all this decision is given? Then what are we? I mean, we are only testing.
So you need to write your test cases from this. I mean, this is not the test case,
Okay.
right? This is the table, this is the kind of scenarios they are giving to you. Based on that,
Okay.
so you will be able to understand that when you look at the test case template, what does a test case
Mm-hmm.
template will have. So when you
Mm-hmm.
look at that, you will be able to interlink between them.
Mm-hmm. So
But I
can I ask
yeah
you, what is the test case? I mean, just for asking, what is the test case you will write when this decision table is given?
So out of this decision table, you will be able to write 8 different test cases.
Okay.
So in a test case, I will just show you, just for the information at this point
Uh-huh.
of time. I will just show you how does a test case template look like. Okay.
Okay.
So this is a typical test case template.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So these are the typical test case template. And
Uh-huh.
if your organization is using some tool, so they can have their own format. Okay.
Mm.
But normally all the fields will be same. These fields will be there. So your test case will have a test scenario ID. So before we write our test case, we'll prepare our test scenarios. Okay. And we'll talk about this later, that each test scenario can be divided in different test cases. But for now, just look at this. There will be different actions. So what are the different actions? These are the different actions. This is the action basically, right? The
Okay,
format,
okay.
the size, the resolution.
Uh,
Then the input, what will be your input, what is expected output. So what is expected output, that is this, the photo should be uploaded, or you should get the
oh,
error
okay.
message, or
Oh.
error message size mismatch. So this is the
Mm.
expected output. Now while you are actually testing it, what is the output that you are getting?
Error. Yeah. Mm.
Error, whether you are getting error. So if you are getting error, you will log a defect. So that will be linked to the defect. Then which browser you are testing on, what is the test result, whether it's a pass or fail, and then if you have any comment, you will add there. So
Mm.
this is a sample test case.
Okay.
So this is how the test case is written.
Okay.
Enter correct email and password and hit login button. So this is the action that you are performing. This is the
Mm.
input. Okay.
Mm.
Then expected output is login success. Actual output
Mm.
is login success. Then the test result is pass.
What do you mean by test browser IE11 in that?
That is means that you have tested it in Internet Explorer browser. It
Okay,
can be
okay.
Chrome as well.
Okay.
And like this actually depends. This actually depends on the particular type of software you are using as a test management tool. If you are using Jira, then it could be something else. If you are using
Mm.
Excel files, then it will be. So this depends on the organization and the project you are working on.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
fine. So decision table is clear, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, great. The last thing that we are having today is state transition testing. So a lot of thing is written here, but you don't need to understand all these things in case of
Mm.
state transition testing. So state transition testing is from a particular state given an input where you can move to the next state in the system. So it will be better if you or if you understand it through the example, and then you can read it. Okay. So for the
Mm.
example, I will just show you one diagram. Okay, let me know if my screen is visible.
Yes.
Okay. So suppose you have your net banking. Okay.
Mm.
And the logic given there is, if you enter incorrect password consecutively 3 times, then your account will be blocked.
Mm.
Okay. So that is the
Mm.
condition. Now
Mm.
you need to test it.
Mm.
So what will be, how are you going to test it? So this is the state of the application can be understood from this diagram.
Mm.
So there is a state which is start. Okay. Then you are entering your
Correct
password for the
password.
first time. Now,
Mm.
if you enter the correct pin, you will be able to enter, your access will be
Yeah.
granted. So this is a state, right? So based
Mm.
on the correct pin, your state is moved to access granted. So
Mm.
given an input, your state is changing from here to here.
Mm.
Now, if you are entering the incorrect pin, then what will happen? Your state will be moved to this one.
Second. Yeah.
And now if you are entering a correct pin, you will go here.
Access. Yeah.
But if you enter a incorrect pin, you will move
So
here.
the third one. Yeah.
You will be in this state. Now, if you give a correct pin, you will be in this state.
Yeah.
But if you enter the incorrect pin, you will be moving to this state where your account
Mhm.
will be blocked.
Right.
So, given, I mean, depending on the input that you are providing to the system, the state of the system is changing.
Mm.
So this is called as uh, state transition diagram, and this is
Mm.
also helpful for you to design your tests. Okay,
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
let's now see here what is state transition testing. So this is basically is having four basic part: the state the software may occupy, the transition from one state to another, the event that caused the transition, and the action that results from a transition,
Mhm.
right? So there will be a initial stage, right? And from the initial stage, as per your input, you will be moved to some other state.
Mhm.
Okay, so state transition testing is used where some aspect of system can be described while what is called as finite state machine. This is not important. This simply means that the system can be in a number of different states, and the transition from one state to another state are determined by the rules of the machine. This is the
Mhm.
model on which system and the tests are based. So what are the rules here? The rules here, if you are providing incorrect input for 3 consecutive time, then your state
You're
will be
blocked.
changed to block.
Yeah.
But if you
Yeah.
are providing correct input in between those three incorrect input type, you will be granted.
Right. Yeah.
So any system where you get a different output for same input depending on what has happened before is a finite state system.
Mhm.
Okay. One of the
Yeah.
advantages of the state transition technique is that the model can be as detailed or as abstract as you need to be. Where a part of the system is more important, that is requires more testing, a greater depth of detail can be modeled. Where the system
Mm.
is less important, requires less testing, the model can use a single state to signify what would otherwise be a series of different state. So basically,
Mm.
like, it depends on the complexity, you can understand from here only. Or
Yeah.
like if I show you something.
Mm.
So this states are normally like if it's at all required, because if you are working on a very complex project, then only you will get this state transition testing or
Mhm.
the state transition diagram, and all the details of this different step and input and output will be also given to you. So
Mhm.
this is just helpful to understand the behavior of the application, or how the different for different type of input the system will be behaving, or
Right.
how the state of the system is changing from one state to another. So if you look at this is a very complex example, right?
Mm.
I mean,
Mm.
initial state, then if you complete something, then it's go to update, and then
Mm.
it's waiting for some input from the customer. From there, it can be the customer can select language, then they can
Mm.
cancel as well. If they cancel, where they will come back. If they
Mhm.
provide the language, then it will be go into the payment thing. From the payment also they can cancel. If the payment they cancel, they will go here. And from the
Mm.
payment, if they do the payment, so it can be like the valid payment or invalid payment. If they are doing the
Mm.
invalid payment, then where the system will go. So it will give you the overview of the system and the different transition from one state to another state,
Oh.
right? And looking at
Yeah.
this state, you will be able to identify the test cases. Like if you are
Okay.
in this state, right? And what are the different things or different like state that it can move to. From here it can move to waiting for customer, It can actually move to browsing state as well. So depending on this different input where the system is going, and accordingly you can design your scenarios.
Okay.
So this is helpful for you to design your scenarios. That's all.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Okay.
So are this looking interesting?
Yes, they are.
Because if you get interest in these things, then you are going to like testing.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's all we had from today's session. It's like fun, and this will be very much helpful for you when you'll be actually designing this test cases. When you'll go to the designing of test scenarios and test cases, at that
Sure.
time, it's going to help us. So
Okay.
let's just quickly see what we are going to see in the next session. So next session we'll be mostly looking at the white box testing, that is the
Mhm.
structure based testing and experience based testing as well.
Okay.
Okay, so that's
Mhm.
all we have from today's session. Do you have any query at this point of time?
No, no.
Okay,
I'll
okay,
review it and see. I mean, I think it's very good. I'll just review it and see.
sure, sure.
Anything, I'll ask you tomorrow.
Okay, okay. So have a
Thank
very
you.
good night and let's see you tomorrow then.
Yeah, sure. Thank you and have a
Okay,
good day.
thanks for
Thank
joining.
you.
Yeah, bye. Have a
Yeah.
good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.